You know those sparkly outfits and magical transformations in like our childhood cartoons? They weren't just for show. They were like low-key teaching us about confidence.
Yeah.
And self-expression.
Interesting.
We're talking the enduring appeal of 2000's animation.
Yeah.
Shows like Winx Club, Bratz, Totally Spies, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Today, we are diving deep, deep, deep into the why. Why they resonated then, why they're relevant now, and how all of those insights can actually be applied to your life.
I think it's so fascinating how these shows, sometimes they're dismissed as just like girly stuff.
Right.
But they actually tap into some pretty deep, like psychological and sociological concepts.
But for sure.
Like take the fashion, for example. Those kind of exaggerated outfits. It wasn't just about like looking cute.
Right.
It was about embracing this like bold and unapologetic sense of style.
It's true. Think about the Winx Club. Their outfits were like a supernova of color and sparkle. I remember wanting to raid Bloom's closet so badly.
Totally. And I think that speaks to a really interesting concept called enclothed cognition. Have you heard of this?
No, tell me more.
It's basically the idea that what we wear can actually like influence how we feel and act. So like when we put on clothes that make us feel powerful, confident, or even just like fun, it can actually shift our mindset and our behavior.
Whoa. So you're saying those sparkly outfits weren't just fashion statements. They were actually confidence boosters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it goes, I think, beyond just feeling good. There's this sense of agency and self-expression that comes with choosing how you want to present yourself to the world. It's about owning your look and saying, like, this is me, and I'm not afraid to stand out.
Yeah. Which is like a pretty powerful message, especially for, young girls who are often bombarded with messages about how they should look and dress.
Absolutely. And it challenges that traditional notion of femininity as being like passive or submissive. These shows, they present a different kind of femininity, like one that was bold, expressive, and unafraid to take up space.
Right, like those iconic Bratz dolls.
Oh, yes.
Their pouty lips and those, oh my God, those outfits. They were not afraid to push boundaries.
They really weren't. And that ties into, I think, this larger conversation about reclaiming and redefining femininity.
Yes.
Because for so long, femininity has been associated with like weakness.
Yeah.
Or frivolity.
Yeah.
But these shows embrace those traditionally feminine elements.
Right.
The fashion, the makeup, the emotions, and turned them into sources of like strength and power.
It's like they were saying, hey, you can be a girly girl and a total badass.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's a message that resonates with a lot of women today.
Totally.
We're seeing this like resurgence of interest in hyper-feminine aesthetics, but with like a modern twist.
Yes.
It's about owning your femininity on your own terms and not letting anyone tell you what it should look like.
It's about time. Okay, but it wasn't just about the clothes, right? These shows also had like these incredibly vibrant and fantastical settings. Like think about All Faye, the magical school in Winx Club, or the futuristic world of Totally Spies. Like what?
Yes. Those like escapist settings were another key part of their appeal. Think about it.
Okay.
These shows were airing during a time when the world was going through like some pretty major changes.
For sure.
There was like a lot of uncertainty and anxiety in the air.
Yeah, it's like those shows provided like a much needed escape from reality.
Totally. And there's actually like a psychological theory called cognitive load theory that explains why these kinds of visual escapes can be so beneficial.
Okay.
Essentially, it says that our brains can only process a limited amount of information like at a time.
Makes sense.
So when we're overloaded with information, stress, deadlines, news, whatever, our cognitive load increases.
Okay, so you're saying those colorful visuals and like the fantastical settings actually help to reduce our cognitive load.
Yes, exactly. So by like immersing ourselves in these visually stimulating worlds, we were giving our brains a break from the real world. Yeah. And that break, it allowed us to relax, de-stress, and even boost our creativity.
So those sparkly outfits and magical worlds weren't just pretty to look at. They were actually good for our mental health.
Yeah. It's pretty fascinating, isn't it? It speaks to the power of visual storytelling and how it can impact us on like a deeper level.
For sure. It makes you wonder if there are ways we can like intentionally incorporate more of these visual escapes into our like adult lives.
Totally.
I love that.
And we'll definitely like delve into some practical tips for that later on.
Okay.
But for now, let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about another fascinating aspect of these shows, the characters.
Okay, let's unpack this. You know how those characters often had like these exaggerated, simplified features? It wasn't super realistic, but somehow it felt relatable to a wide audience.
That's a great observation. I think it ties into this concept called perceptual abstraction,
Okay.
which is this idea that simplifying features can actually increase relatability.
Okay.
So by stripping away certain details, you know, these characters become more universal archetypes that people from different backgrounds can see themselves in.
So it's like by not focusing on super specific details, these shows created characters that transcended cultural boundaries.
Exactly.
And resonated with like a global audience.
Yeah. And that's such a powerful testament to the universality of certain themes and emotions, whether you're from Europe, Asia, the Americas. We all experience things like friendship, love, loss, and the desire to belong.
And speaking of those universal themes, let's talk about nostalgia.
Ooh, yes.
You know how sometimes you revisit your favorite childhood shows and it just hits you right in the feels? There's that like warm, fuzzy feeling mixed with a little bit of longing, like simpler times.
Oh, totally. Nostalgia is such a powerful emotion.
Yeah.
And it turns out that it can be especially potent for women.
Right.
Studies actually show that women tend to experience what's called bittersweet nostalgia more intensely than men.
What do you mean by bittersweet nostalgia?
It's that feeling of yearning for the past, coupled with an awareness that, like, those times are gone and they can't be fully recaptured. It's a very complex emotion that can evoke both joy and sadness, like, at the same time.
So you're saying those late night Winx Club marathons aren't just a guilty pleasure. They're actually tapping into, like, a deep emotional well.
Exactly. And it's not just about like indulging in sentimentality. Nostalgia can actually be a powerful tool for self-reflection, personal growth, and even building resilience.
Wow.
So by revisiting our past experiences, we can gain a new perspective on who we are, where we've been, and where we want to go. Like those childhood shows provide like a sort of emotional anchor, connecting us to a time when things felt simpler, more carefree.
And maybe by tapping into those feelings, we can actually like access some of that inner strength and resilience that we developed as kids.
Totally. It's like revisiting those old shows gives us this like pep talk from our younger selves, reminding us of the challenges we've already overcome and the strength we possess.
You know, we've talked a lot about the visuals and the nostalgia, but we can't forget about the heart of these shows, the friendships.
Right.
Think about the Winx Club, always there for each other, or the Totally Spies, like the ultimate girl squad goals.
Yes. Those portrayals of strong female friendships were so important.
Yeah.
Especially for like young girls who are just starting to navigate those like complexities of social dynamics and relationships.
It's true. I remember wanting to be part of their group so badly.
Totally.
They always had each other's backs no matter what.
Yes. And that sense of like solidarity and support is something that resonates so deeply with women across generations.
Yeah.
We crave those deep connections. Those like ride or die friendships that make us feel seen, heard, and understood.
It's like those shows were subtly teaching us the importance of like building a supportive network of women who will lift us up and empower us to be our best selves.
Absolutely. And it challenged that stereotype of women as being like catty or competitive with each other. These shows presented a different narrative, one of collaboration, empathy, and mutual support.
It's like they were saying, hey, girls can be powerful together.
Yes, exactly. And that message is, I think, more relevant than ever today as women continue to fight for equality and break down barriers in all areas of society. Like, we need each other now more than ever.
Okay, but we can't ignore the elephant in the room. The whole debate about whether shows like Winx Club and Bratz were overly sexualizing young girls.
Yeah, that's a valid concern, and it's a conversation that needs to be had. On the one hand, these shows did present like a very stylized, often like hyper-feminine aesthetic that, you know, some might argue was inappropriate for young audiences.
Right, like those super short skirts and those impossibly long legs.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's definitely a bit much.
But on the other hand, I think it's also important to acknowledge, you know, the agency and self-expression that these characters also embodied, like they were choosing how they wanted to present themselves to the world.
Right.
And that in itself can be empowering.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
On the one hand, there's the potential for harmful messages about like body image and sexuality. But on the other hand, there's also this element of self-determination and owning your look.
Exactly. And it highlights the complexities of like navigating femininity in a culture that often sends very like mixed messages about what's acceptable or appropriate.
It makes you wonder if those shows could have achieved that same sense of empowerment and self-expression without relying on those exaggerated and sometimes provocative visuals.
That's a really great question. And it's something that, you know, creators of children's media need to grapple with constantly. How do you strike that balance between appealing to young audiences while also promoting like positive and healthy messages about body image?
It's a tough one.
It is.
But it's a conversation that needs to continue. Okay, but enough with the serious stuff for a minute. Let's talk about the fun part.
Okay.
The fashion. We've already like touched on it a bit.
Yeah.
But I think it deserves its own like deep dive.
Oh, absolutely. The fashion in those shows was iconic.
Oh my God, yes.
It was bold, it was colorful, it was unapologetically girly.
Like they weren't afraid to break all the fashion rules and like create looks that were totally unique and unforgettable.
And they weren't just following trends, they were like setting them. You know, we're seeing so much of that 2000s aesthetic come back in fashion today.
Oh, yeah.
From, you know, crop tops and low-rise jeans to chunky platform shoes and butterfly clips.
It's like a full-on Y2K revival.
It really is.
And it's not just limited to clothes.
Yeah.
We're seeing it in makeup, hairstyles, even home decor.
I know. It's so fascinating how those aesthetics from our childhood can come back around and feel so fresh and relevant again.
Totally.
It speaks to the cyclical nature of trends.
Yeah.
And how we're constantly like reinterpreting the past
through
a modern lens.
It's like fashion is a time machine. Taking us back to those eras that hold like a special place in our hearts.
Yeah.
But with like a contemporary twist.
Exactly. And I think there's something so comforting about revisiting those familiar styles, especially during times of like uncertainty or change, you know? It's like a way of grounding ourselves in something familiar and nostalgic.
It's like those fashion trends are like old friends.
Yeah.
Coming back to remind us of who we are and where we come from. But it's not just about nostalgia, right?
Right.
There's also this element of rebellion and pushing boundaries.
Yes.
That was so central to like the 2000s aesthetic.
Absolutely. You know, those early 2000s were such a time of like experimentation and self-expression, especially in fashion. It was about breaking free from the constraints of like traditional style rules and creating looks that were unique and individualistic.
And that sense of rebellion feels so relevant today.
Totally.
Especially with like all of the social and political movements happening around the world. So like fashion is becoming a way to like express our values, our beliefs, and our identities.
Exactly. It's about using fashion as a tool for activism, for self-discovery, for creating change. And it's so empowering to see so many like young people embracing that power and using their style to like make a statement.
But let's be real, not all of us can pull off those super short skirts and crop tops anymore.
True. But that's the beauty of fashion. It's all about finding what works for you.
Right.
And expressing yourself in a way that feels authentic. And comfortable.
So it's not about trying to recreate those 2000s looks exactly, but rather about finding ways to incorporate those elements that like resonate with us into our own personal style.
Exactly. It's about taking inspiration from the past, but making it your own. And that's where creativity and confidence come in.
Okay, but I have to ask. Do you think there are any downsides to this whole, like, Y2K revival? Like, are we romanticizing the past too much?
You know, that's a valid question, and I think it's important to be mindful of the, like, potential pitfalls of nostalgia. It's so easy to get caught up in those rose-tinted memories of the past.
Right.
And forget that it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
Like those awkward middle school phases we'd rather forget.
Exactly. And we have to be careful not to erase, like, the progress we've made in terms of social justice and inclusivity. You know, the early 2000s weren't exactly known for their diversity and representation.
Right. So it's like we can appreciate the good parts of that era, the fashion, the music, the sense of optimism, while also acknowledging that there's always room for growth and improvement.
Absolutely. It's about learning from the past, both the good and the bad, and using those insights to create a better future. And I think that's where, like, this conversation about reclaiming narrative agency comes in.
Okay, explain that one to me. It sounds deep.
So it's the idea that we have the power to, like, reinterpret the past and to reclaim those narratives that might have been like harmful or exclusionary.
So it's like taking back those stories and rewriting them in a way that reflects our values and our vision for the future.
Exactly. And we're seeing this happening across all forms of media, from film and television to music and fashion. Like, we're seeing this resurgence of interest in stories and aesthetics from the past, but with like a modern twist.
Like that recent reboot of Totally Spies, but with a more diverse cast and a focus on like social justice issues.
Exactly. It's about taking what we loved about those like classic shows and updating them for a new generation, making them more inclusive, more progressive, and more reflective of the world we live in today.
I love that. It's like we're taking the best of the past and blending it with the best of the present to create something truly special and empowering.
And it's a reminder that we all have the power to like shape the narratives that define our lives and our culture. Like, we don't have to be passive consumers of media. We can be like active creators and change makers.
Okay, but enough with the theory. Let's get back to the good stuff. If we could wave our magic wands and create our own modern cartoon inspired by the 2000s, what would it look like?
Ooh, that's a fun question.
I'm already picturing the outfits, sparkle, glitter, platform shoes, the works.
Of course. But beyond like the visuals, I think it would be so amazing to see a show that really celebrates diversity and representation in all its forms.
Like a cast of characters from all different backgrounds, ethnicities, body types, and gender identities.
Exactly. It would be so inspiring to see a show that reflects the like true richness and complexity of the world we live in.
And what about the storyline? What kind of adventures would they go on?
Well, I think it'd be so cool to see them tackling some of the real world issues that like young people are facing today, like climate change, social media pressures, and mental health challenges.
But in a way that's still like fun and engaging, right? We don't want to bum everyone out.
Of course not. It's all about like finding that balance between entertainment and education, between escapism and reality. And I think it's possible to create a show that does both.
It's like sneaking in those life lessons between the magical transformations and the fashion montages.
Exactly. And I think it would be so empowering for like young viewers to see characters who look like them. Who are going through like similar struggles. But who are also finding ways to overcome those challenges and make a difference in the world.
I love that. It's like giving them a blueprint for how to navigate like the complexities of life with confidence and compassion.
And of course, you know, it wouldn't be a true 2000s inspired show without those incredible friendships. And that sense of female solidarity.
Like a group of girls who are always there for each other no matter what.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's those connections, those supportive relationships that help us through the tough times and make life worth living.
Okay, this is all sounding amazing. I'm already hooked on this like imaginary show. But I have to ask, what about the music?
The music, that's crucial. I'm thinking like a mix of pop, R&B, and maybe even like a little bit of electronic music. Something that's like upbeat, catchy, and empowering.
Like a soundtrack that makes you want to dance and conquer the world at the same time.
Exactly. And I think it'd be so cool to have like original songs that are specifically written for the show with lyrics that reflect, you know, the characters' experiences and the themes of the story.
It's like giving the show its own like unique voice and personality.
And imagine like the merchandise possibilities. T-shirts, backpacks, phone cases, all like emblazoned with the show's logo and those catchy lyrics.
Okay, now I'm really picturing this show like as a global phenomenon.
I think it has the potential. And it's not just about like entertainment. It's about creating a community, a movement, a space where young people can feel seen, heard, and empowered.
Okay, we've talked about the visuals, the storyline, the music. Is there anything else we need to add to this like dream cartoon?
Well, I think it would be really important to make sure the show is like accessible to a wide audience. So we need to consider things like subtitles, dubbing in different languages, and maybe even creating a like sensory-friendly version for viewers with like sensitivities to light or sound.
That's a great point. It's all about making sure everyone can enjoy the show and feel included in the community.
Exactly. And I think it would be amazing to like partner with organizations that are doing work around, you know, social justice, mental health, and environmental sustainability.
So it's not just about creating a show, it's about creating like a movement, a platform for positive change.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this whole like idea so exciting. It's about using the power of storytelling and animation to inspire, educate, and empower a new generation.
Okay, I'm officially obsessed with this idea. We need to pitch this to a network, like ASAP.
I'm right there with you. But in the meantime, maybe our listeners have some ideas of their own.
Yes. Tell us, what would you add to our, like, dream cartoon? What kind of characters, storylines, or music would you include?
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And while you're brainstorming, let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about some like practical ways that you can incorporate those 2000s aesthetics and those empowering messages into your own life, like right now.
Okay, so we've like covered a lot of ground in our deep dive into 2000s animation.
We have.
We've talked about the fashion, the friendships, the nostalgia, and even like the controversies.
Yeah.
But now I'm curious, what are some like tangible takeaways from all of this? What can we actually do to like apply these insights to our lives?
Well, I think one thing that really stood out to me was like the power of color.
Okay.
You know, we talked about how those like bright, vibrant hues can actually like boost our mood.
Right.
And energy levels.
Right, like those rainbow-colored outfits in Winx Club.
Yeah.
It always made me feel so happy and energized.
Exactly. So why not like try incorporating more color into your everyday life?
Okay.
It could be as simple as like adding a bright scarf to your outfit or painting an accent wall in your room or even just like surrounding yourself with like colorful flowers or artwork.
It's like giving your environment a little dose of happiness. I love that.
And speaking of happiness, remember how those shows like really emphasize the importance of friendship?
Oh, absolutely. The Winx Club and Totally Spies. They were like the ultimate friendship goals.
They were.
They were always there for each other.
They were.
Through thick and thin.
Through thick and thin. And, you know, research actually shows that strong social connections are so crucial for our well-being.
Oh, for sure.
So make an effort to, like, nurture those close friendships in your own life.
So schedule that coffee date with your bestie. Call your long-distance friend. Or plan, like, a fun outing with your girl squad.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to, like, be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And share your feelings with your friends, you know? True friends will listen without judgment and offer support when you need it most.
It's like having your own personal cheer squad, but they also happen to be your best friends.
Exactly. Another key takeaway from those shows is, I think, like, this idea of embracing your individuality. You know, those characters were all so unique and quirky.
Right.
And they weren't afraid to, like, stand out from the crowd.
Like Musa from Winx Club.
Yes.
With her edgy style and her passion for music, or Alex from Totally Spies.
Yes.
Who was always like the voice of reason and like the tech whiz of the group.
Exactly. And I think that's such an important message, especially in a world that often tries to put us in boxes. You know, don't be afraid to be yourself, to like express your unique personality and to pursue your passions, even if they're not like mainstream.
So rock that bold outfit, experiment with your hairstyle, try that new hobby you've been curious about, whatever makes you feel like your most authentic self.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes along the way. You know, those characters definitely had their fair share of like mishaps. And blunders.
Oh, yeah.
But they always, like, learned from their experiences and came back stronger.
It's like those shows were subtly teaching us about resilience.
Yes.
And the importance of, like, not giving up on ourselves, even when things get tough.
Totally. And lastly, don't underestimate the power of nostalgia, you know? We talked about how, like, revisiting those childhood shows can evoke feelings of comfort, joy, and even inspiration.
So put on your comfy clothes, grab your favorite snacks, and have a, like, guilt-free nostalgia night.
I love it. It's such a great way to, like, de-stress, reconnect with your inner child, and maybe even spark some, like, creative ideas.
It's like taking a mini vacation back to a time when things felt simpler and more carefree.
Totally. And who knows, maybe those shows will like remind you of some forgotten dreams.
Right.
Or passions that you're ready to reawaken.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I've gained like a whole new appreciation for those like 2000s cartoons that shaped my childhood.
Me too. It's amazing how much wisdom and inspiration we can find in those seemingly simple shows.
So to all of our listeners out there, we encourage you to revisit your favorite childhood shows, embrace your inner magical girl or secret agent, and never stop believing in the power of friendship, self-expression, and a little bit of sparkle.
And remember, no matter what challenges you face, you have the strength and resilience to overcome them. So go out there and create the life you've always dreamed of.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of 2000s animation. We hope you learned something new, felt a little nostalgic, and maybe even sparked some ideas for how to bring a little bit of that 2000s magic into your own life.
Until next time, stay sparkly
and
empower.